Unmute me. There we go.
I think that's the first thing they're going to hear is Chris saying, unmute me. And that's fine. That's how we like to start all of our episodes, by yelling at the audience. That's my friend Chris Ford, a.k.a. The Objective Geek, who will not be silenced. And my name is Sean Shaler. This is Avatar, The Last Podcasters. Doing kind of a special, slightly different episode for you today. Still in between books 2 and 3 of Korra, and so we like to take that opportunity to squeeze in these other random ideas that Chris thinks of during the course of a book. And there's
Sometimes they're good ideas. Sometimes they're. It turned out. Oh, last week's episode is just.
I'm,
As I think it was Hoop said it, like we're all over the place, but he said it in a good way, which we were.
and
Anyway, not
and
important.
quite frankly, I'm going to take the blame for last week because I don't know if I knew what the intention was. Like I was having a hard time deciding what it was that you were trying to prove, and then we got to the end, and you're like, so you feel it would change much? And I was like, no. And you're like, yeah, see? And I'm like, oh, you didn't. So it didn't occur to me until way too late. I'm sure you explained it in very clear terms, but I'm a
Nah,
human and I sleep a lot, and then those terms go away. But hey, you know what? This week is another week and a new attempt, and I've got a lot of hype in my head built up for this one because we're going to talk a little bit
good.
about
It's gonna be a
Raya and the Last Dragon, and then not that anyone told us to or anyone asked for this, but throw around some cross comparisons to the Legend of Korra, and I think there's some really good application there. So I'm very excited
yes.
to talk about this
And
one.
to Avatar: Last Airbender, the two
Oh,
I
okay.
would
You know, I
compare it
was just
to.
thinking Korra, but that is very silly.
Yeah.
Yes, to
You can't put
the whole
Raya and
universe.
Korra, but I was comparing it to all of it.
Well,
But
Chris, obviously the only thing is there's two strong female characters, and that's it. See, I just covered it. We don't
yeah,
have to do it anymore. That's the whole story.
that's true.
Uh,
Everyone knows that all movies with a strong female character are pretty much all the same
it's
movie.
the same thing. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, same
Please
thing.
don't stop listening to us when we're joking about this.
We are absolutely joking. I love strong female characters and their nuanced films.
Big fans on this show. But before we jump into that stuff, Chris, it's been 2 weeks since we last recorded. How you doing? What do you got going on?
I'm doing great. Doing pretty great. What do I have going on? I don't even know, really. Yeah, just doing good, living my life like it's golden, and that's it.
That's it. There's no upcoming videos. No smack talk
I
on the
mean,
Clippers who are
I
losing
mean,
big right now.
I keep trying to start writing scripts for videos, and I don't get that far. Not because of writer's block, just will and time.
Yeah, that's fair. No, pointing out the fact that Steam constantly runs in the background, so every time somebody logs on Steam, it shows up on that screen. And I really need to get that changed. The friend who just got on, his name is Corgi Princess, so that's kind of fun.
I did get the random interrogation email that HBO Matt sent out. Did you see that?
No, I didn't because it's
So
because
I
it's
don't
your
know. Of course,
account and all.
yeah. A random intern accidentally sent out an email to like a third of HBO Max subscribers. It just said the subject just said interrogation test, and there was nothing in the email. Like it seemed like a. I didn't open it at first because it seemed like a sketchy email, and then I saw like so many people got it. Apparently, it was an intern just made a mistake, and then HBO Max like sent out a tweet about it, and then a lot of people were commenting like, "Hey, intern, don't worry. Like I did this one time. I did this one time."
I saw Dear Intern on Twitter. I didn't click on it. I presume that's
Yeah.
related. But when
Yes.
you first said interrogation email, I'm like, Chris got kicked off of HBO Max because I use his profile on like 4 different TVs. So I thought you were very calm and collected about it. I was gonna be like, oh, you're in a very good mood about this. No, I'm glad that wasn't the case. I did not receive said email. Have been watching a ton of HBO Max though. By the way, thanks. We've got
Good.
like 5 streaming services, and I watch HBO Max more than any of them.
They have good. They have good content.
They do, and they will be the subject of some of our episodes potentially in the near future, or not the subject, the host, I guess, of some of our content that we'll talk about going forward. But not today. Chris, if you don't have anything else that you care to talk about at the moment, I'm going to introduce something what we're going to try just a little bit different. Hopefully, it doesn't come off as too weird or anything like that. But we're going to kind of
Yeah.
offer a standalone review of Raya the Last Dragon. And if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching the full episode, it's just gonna be a chunk of that episode. But we're gonna try to do sort of a clean cut, minimize our tangents and things like that, so that we can also pluck this part out and post it separately potentially, so that people that don't want to hear us talk for an hour about a single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender might still come and watch our review of Raya and The Last Dragon. So we're gonna give this a shot. Maybe it'll be stupid, maybe it won't. We'll see how it goes. And that's all the preface I've
And
got
and
for that.
separate from that is that we're going to do the actual comparison of the two, compare a couple of different uh, topics and themes of the two properties.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
even know. I don't even know if I introduced. That's a great point. After our
I think you
review, we
did.
will get
Yeah.
into that sort of actual meat of the podcast episode, in which
Yes.
we're going to compare and contrast the two.
Yes. Something real Avatar related, real quick. The McFarlane figures, I pre-ordered a bunch of them, which they're pretty cheap right now. They're exclusively at Walmart. So far, they have Aang, Katara, Zuko, Sokka, and Appa. And these figures are fairly cheaper than their usual McFarlane action figures. Usually McFarlane action figures are 19.99 to 24.9, depending on the figure. But these are all 9.99, except for the Appa one, which is 14.99, which is fairly cheap. Oh,
Is
and
he
also there was an
substantially
Aang.
larger?
Yes, he's
Huh.
probably the same size as the Appa one that I already have. So
Oh,
I
no
have two
kidding.
Appa.
The one that makes the noise when you roll his
Yeah,
wheels.
yeah. Mhm.
Adorable.
Uh,
That's
so
awesome.
I pre-order those. You guys can pre-order yours from Walmart right now. Go support your non-local. Go support this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that for some reason has the audacity to say they're hiring people in your neighborhood, but won't put more than one person on the register.
At first, when you said go support your, and I thought you were referring to McFarlane. I was like, wow, Chris knows a lot about McFarlane. They, all I know is they do sports figures sometimes.
They
Uh,
were very popular for doing sports figures. Yeah,
yeah, I feel like that was a huge thing in like the mid to
it
late
was.
'90s. Sports figures just went insane. I don't feel like you had to be good to have a sports figure made of you. That's not a good sign. But anyway, McFarlane sports figures. Thanks for the update. Go support Walmart. I guess.
Those
Good.
those Waltons,
I
the
don't know
Walton
what else to
family could
say.
really use your money.
So I know I'm gonna get us off on a tangent before we even start. I have one friend who I would consider a staunch, maybe even moderately extreme liberal, but he has a full time job at Walmart, and on one hand he swears by their treatment of their full time employees as a company. And I was like, oh, yeah, really? And he's like, yeah, as far as like if you're a full time
Uh,
employee and how it's going. But he's like, the only issue is that doesn't usually or always trickle down to stores and how stores operate and get around making people full time employees and horrible, awful things that happen to the majority of their employees and in a working around the system sense, so to
I
speak. So
mean, we both worked. I feel like we have an interesting thought behind it because some people are one thing. I'm a fairly liberal person. That's not important. But some people are like really liberal. They're like screw all the mega companies and stuff, which you can believe that you want. That's perfectly fine. I have nothing against you believing that. Um, but I have,
I'm not an economics professor. I can't tell you how that large or small scale impacts the community.
but like we have an interesting, or at least, I mean, I feel like we have an interesting background because we worked in retail. We worked for $1 billion company. Granted, it was worth like 1.5 billion at its highest peak, maybe three.
But it
Was
was
it
a
three?
$1 billion.
But it
Maybe
was a
more
billion dollar
important than
company.
the billion, though, is just the number of retail outlets,
Yeah,
like the
like
vast number of.
four 4,000 stores across the world, right?
Yeah, so even
Uh,
if you set aside the money, like it was corporate retail.
yeah, and also we've worked. You worked in stores. I worked retail. I worked at Walmart. for a year. I worked at plenty of places. I mean, my mom has worked in retail her whole life. She works at Walmart right now. She first worked at Mervyn's, then she worked at Sears,
What
and I
is
think
Mervin's?
Walmart
I'm not
will.
familiar with that.
Oh, it was a department store. It's
Okay.
closed, of course, just like Sears, that's closed. Uh,
That
but
is a
anyway, but
given.
but we have a interesting, like I have an interesting point of view on it. It's just like, all right, well, I know the ins and outs of kind of working like at the corporate office, right? You're making like prices and stuff, and lots of things that you do negatively impacts the workers down the line. But you're just like, oh, well, like we
Hands are
gotta,
tied,
yeah.
essentially.
And it's nothing like that detrimental, but it's like I gotta change this price on this one shoe, and because I changed this price, it's gonna make someone have to work overtime to go and change those prices physically,
And
right?
to us, when you see a $1 change on a shoe because it gets you to that number that you're supposed to be hitting, but to the people in the store, it's like I have to
Yeah.
go spend X number of hours for a
Yeah, exactly.
dollar on a shoe. A dollar. Um, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Long story short, hey, Walmart, not all good or not all bad like everything else in life. We'll go super arbitrary and ambiguous like that. So if you want to get your McFarlane figures from there, you do that. No judgment from us
That's
either way.
the only place you can get it, apparently, off of
That's
eBay afterwards.
I
But
was gonna
either
say
way,
that's
Walmart's making that money.
that's
Uh,
outrageous that Walmart has an exclusive right on this
yeah,
TV
I'm
show's
surprised they.
McFarlane figures. That's
I'm
so
actually surprised
weird.
they have a Walmart exclusive. I would have thought that McFarlane would have branched that out to everybody. Usually they do. They don't. Like the only things they have exclusives to are just like very niche. Like, oh, this one variant copy of this action
A
figure is only exclusive to
specific,
Target.
yeah,
Yeah,
not a whole
yeah,
line. That is
yeah.
very. That's like a GameStop thing. That
Walmart must have put in a big bid for it or something,
yeah. I
and
wonder how
guaranteed to
many.
order a bunch of product.
I I guess that's good that Walmart's excited about
Yeah,
Avatar. That's a
I
good
can't.
sign.
I'm more so excited for when they start doing Legend Core action figures because I don't have any Legend Core action figures. They haven't like Avatar, Diamond Select used to do the action figures, and those are pretty okay, good action figures. But they lost that license. But Diamond Select never got to doing Korra, so now McFarlane's pretty much doing the same exact figures that the Diamond Select did. They're just redoing them their own way.
Because money.
Yeah.
Uh, well, hey, maybe when the core figures come along, they'll be less expensive. So I suppose that's pretty exciting.
Although $10 is pretty cheap for a figure this day and age,
Yeah. So
which is I've been spending way too much money on action figures lately. Way too much
it's.
money.
I like how you said that quiet. I,
Life is
I was
listening.
gonna say I don't know how deep a sleeper she is. I feel like you've told me before that she is a lighter sleeper than you, so I get the whispering.
Yeah. Well, and she's like 2 stories above me right now. And that makes it even dumber than I'm whispering.
That's amazing. Well, that's exciting that Walmart's excited about Avatar. That's maybe weirdly good omen in its own right.
Yeah.
But I, let's try to get to this review, Chris. I'm gonna let you
All
like
right.
lead the way, and I'll try to shut my mouth. And audience, if you hate how we're doing this, let us know. Or if you love it, that's also good too. But essentially, live recording of a raw, objective geek review with some
Ooh.
other guy who will try not to input his opinion too much. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, in objective review, we in this case will break a movie down into 6 categories and assign weights to them. Those weights are decided depending on the genre. So, if you're an action movie, you get weighted more towards action, and if you're a comedy, you get weighted more towards comedy. So, those 6 categories are story, emotion, action, comedy, acting, and directing. Which directing is kind of just all encompassing, sort of how the movie came together. It could be behind the scenes, essentially. So we'll just kind of go through, rate each one through 10, and then come out with the weighted average score by the end of it.
Just for the
So let's
record, just for the
go ahead.
record, I did not weight our averages together. I just did your score, my score,
That's fine.
presuming that your score would be useful and important, and then we could cut it off before my score if it's real bad. So that's how I did that.
All right. I assume we can start with the first category of story. Sure.
um, do you want to give any kind of official review, introduction, or
Oh,
introduction to
to
the movie,
the
or
synopsis of it.
yeah? So
Also, we
let's
might.
that's where I would
I
start
feel
the
like
video. Is we'll like
we
a
might spoil it a little. I mean, I'm sure anyone's wanted to watch this watch, but actually I don't think I need to spoil it that much. Whatever, we'll spoil it.
give a light
Yeah.
synopsis, and that's where we'll start our official.
Okay.
So let's
So
3, 2, 1.
long ago, five nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Drune attacked. Only the dragon, master of random powers and elements, could stop them. But when the world needed them most, they were turned into stone. And that's essentially 500 years later, Raya believes a new dragon can save the world. And even though Sisu is powerful, she has a lot to learn. But Raya believes the last dragon can save everyone.
That's the greatest
Previously
movie
on
synopsis I think I've
Raya.
ever heard. We're talking about Raya and the Last Dragon. If you can't
Yes,
tell, this is the official quote unquote. I don't know if we do anything that's not official. Avatar: The Last Podcaster's review of Raya and the Last Dragon. Chris, the way I set this up is I put all your ratings on one slide, and then I put all my ratings on the next
sounds good.
slide. I figured let's spend way more time on yours, which will be
Yeah,
intelligent and thought out, and then I'll give mine as an afterthought, and that'll be our Raya and the Last Dragon review. Sound all right?
sounds fine enough. All right,
Excellent.
so first off, with story, the story was fine to me. Um, the I might guess the story was good. There's a certain moral to the story that I thought was done well enough. Or I think it contradicted itself often. The moral of the story is that the story has to keep trusting in people, trusting humanity, and that's the way that we're gonna have a better future, a better world if you continue to try and trust people. Now, the thing is, throughout the movie, is that they contradict that so many, so many times. I mean, by the end of the movie, you get that point is reinforced, but throughout, you're just like, I'm not sure I'll be so trustful of people. Um, I I like the sentiment of it. If you look at it as keep your trust in humanity, not necessarily keep your trust in an individual person, I could really buy that along with the story, which I think that's kind of what they're going for. Because to me, I don't have that type of patience for for people. Like J. Cole has a rap lyric that which it's like a same thing as a the quote that people say, right? Like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. J. Cole's lyric is fool me once, wait, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I can't put the blame on you. Fool me three times, F the peace sign, pull the chopper out, which is a gun, and let it rain on you, which is you know, uh,
That's
a
a pretty
euphemism
heavy-handed strike three, J. Cole.
for yeah, it's very heavy. um, and so this, I feel like that happens, and this after watch is like, nah, I can't trust that person. But anyway, but story, I do like the protagonist, Raya. I feel like she's a pretty strong protagonist. Um, I like her, I don't know, her connections with the father. She does have an arc herself, so that's done fairly well. But I think the moral of the story really pushes the most, so it gets an 8 out of 10. That's his emotion. The emotion was fine, um, which I think was serviceable, and it really I think kicked up a little bit there towards the end. There's a couple different reunions, um, and I think Raya's father, who is voiced by I want to say Daniel Day Kim is his name. He is the voice. He's done several voices in Avatar series. He voiced I think his name was General Fong. who in the episode Avatar, the Avatar state, where he tries to get Aang to go into the Avatar state.
The guy who's
Like,
supposed to be on our side, but he's also a
yes,
jerk. Yeah.
yes. He also voices Hiroshi Sato, uh, Asami's father. So I really like his voice. He's my choice to play Fire Lord Ozai in a live action version. So hopefully he gets that chance. He's pretty. He's worked with Mike and Bryan. Well, Mike and Bryan is no longer working on the live action adaptation, but he has he has history in Avatar. I think they would be foolish not to hire him if he wanted the job. But he also, I mean, to me, he has like the cheekbones of Fire Lord Ozai. Like when you first see Fire Lord Ozai, it's a really interesting look because he looks so regal, right? Like this is the first time we see him. Like you're expecting like the toughest looking BA guy, but instead he's like he has very slick hair. He has like dominant features and stuff. He's if you didn't know any better, he would just be like a handsome looking man.
It's a
But
very
he's
upright look.
yeah. Anyway, emotion gets a 7.5 out of 10. All right, action. Really, there's only I feel like two action sequences in here, and it's really the same two people. It's Raya versus what is her name again?
Namari?
The
Am
Namari,
I saying that right, though?
perhaps. Which
Perhaps
which I
not.
think which I think those fight scenes were done, fairly well. I really like Raya's weapon. I like the difference kind of between the two and how the two fight. But they were just okay at the sequels. I wasn't never just like giddy with the action. Like I can always kind of sort of an out of body experience when I witness like great action. Like I think to myself, wow, this is really good. I'm enjoying it. Like there's a certain uh, adrenaline push when I get good action. I didn't get that at all, and so action gets a 7 out of 10. On to comedy, I think I really only found the well, how did Raya describe the baby?
I
She
don't
called it
remember, but I'm
something.
gonna agree that the
Uh, a crooked baby? No, a direct. No, man. There's some. She
you're
worded it.
essentially referencing a single line in the
Yes, it's a
entire
single
movie.
line, but
Yeah.
that's what I call it. I forgot. Anyway, that baby was funny for a few scenes. Um, on the flip side, the comedy sometimes comedy can backfire, and I feel like sometimes it does that in this movie. Especially they use a lot of modern references or modern
Turns of
phrases and
phrase. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, which that takes me out of the movie because when they're trying to be funny with it, but it's
The
not
one
funny,
where
and
the
also
big
it's
fella says something about like I'd like to join you in this butt kickery, and it's in like all of the previews and the commercials, and it's not funny at all. It's not,
yeah,
and it shops. I've heard it 100 times, and I hate it every time.
yeah. But yeah, that was then all right. So I think comedy's kind of a detriment. So 6.5 out of 10. Acting, I thought everyone's fairly serviceable. I like the actress who plays Raya. Of course, I like Dion Day Kim. I think he wasn't in it all that much. Honestly, wasn't. You probably did not like Aquafina, but she was serviceable. She has such a. It's gonna sound rude. Uh, peculiar, I guess is better than the word I was gonna think of. I was gonna say annoying voice. But sometimes annoying voices are annoying for a reason.
Like to
Um,
an effect, to an end.
yeah, like
Annoying,
it
in her
matches.
defense, annoying's not the like. It's not the
I
right.
think I think peculiar
Yeah, we're
is
not.
is fine.
I'm not gonna bash on Aquafina, who is a tremendously talented human by any means. But yeah, there's something about like the oddness of the voice having an ends.
Yeah, but she sounds like she has a tiny little frog in her throat that's not
Do you
bothering her,
do you
but
remember
just
the
lives
movie
in there.
Bolt? She sounds like the
Yes,
cat in Bolt. Do you by chance know who
I
plays
do
the
not rem I do not remember the cat in Bolt. I just remember that Miley Cyrus voiced the girl in Bolt. I like Bolt.
Bolt's a good movie.
I
I'm
should
gonna find
watch
out
it
who played the
again.
cat just because I'm curious, but it's not important. But I'm gonna find out.
That was a good movie. I
Yeah,
watched it
it's
in theaters. No, I didn't watch it there. I watched it at my anyway, not important. All right, so acting fairly serviceable. Give 7.5 out of 10. Directing, I did not put a 9.5. That must have been a mistake. I think I
Was it
put,
8.5?
I think it was eight
Honestly,
and a half.
it
I
could
think
have
this
been.
isn't that great, Sean.
Now, in my
Uh,
defense, the way that you sent over your ratings was borderline illegible.
that's fine. That's
2, 3, 4, 8. You did a 8.5. Yeah, yeah.
okay. I thought the animation, okay, it's great animation, no doubt about that. Some of the scenes with the water was absolutely great. Like it had this good realism sense to it. But I am admittedly getting bored with Pixar and Disney. This wasn't a Pixar movie, I'm sorry. Um, Same difference. I'm getting kind of borderline bored with Disney animation, which I'm so happy with new movies coming out like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or Mitchell's versus the Machines or the Lego movie. Those things that I think are just pushing the animation genre forward, and they're not just resting on what's worked in the past. Like it's new and inventive. And so, but I still can't complain about the animation. It's because it's good animation. It's just not I don't know, all that thrilling.
It's just like Disney. It's Disney's Pixar look of
Yeah,
3D models and characters and
yeah. I will say I do love the character designs. Um, the dragon character designs are okay, um, but I do love Raya's design. I love a lot of the individual characters' designs. Even though one of them is a complete ripoff of Korra, and we'll get into that later. But
can't wait.
um, and some of the music was done fairly fine enough. And yeah, so directing gets an 8.5 out of 10, not a 9.5. Come on, what is this?
I did
Coco?
do the math. I got your number right in the sheet, and your math checks out here. So it's just
Okay,
literally me
good.
making a typo. My bad.
Okay, that's fine. Which I watched Coco the other day and cried again. I
Gets me every time.
think my daughter, we were surfing something to watch, and my dad was like, "Oh, we should watch Coco," and I was like, "Yeah, let's watch a movie that I've never not been able to cry in, or I've never whatever I've never not cried." And she's like, "You cried in Coco?" And then I thought to myself, "Well, I've done a good job of hiding that I've cried and all the times that I watched this movie with her." But yeah, the end there just never. There's certain
If it
part.
doesn't warm your heart up a little bit, then are you
So
alive?
I cried the first time I watched it. I cried in two times. The one time when they're both trapped in that underground kind of place, right? And then Hector is like, I just wanted to see my Coco. And then they do a quick flashback. And that was more of a cry of like having, I was like, oh, and they figure out that they're family. I'm like, oh, that's just beautiful. That's great. They figure out the family. So I only cried in that scene once. But the end, because always gets me, because it's just kind of like one continuous thing, right? And so Miguel is is trying to get Coco to remember Hector, and he plays for her, and then and then and then finally he plays, and then she starts singing with him, and the family's crying because she's been losing it a little bit. She's not as as they're all there as she was, and they're crying because their grandmother, because their mother, the patriarch of their family is coming out, and she's active and stuff, and also they're crying because like, oh, she's remembering her father, and then now she's telling her story, and then Miguel is crying because he's like, yes, I did it, like Hector's not going to be forgotten. And so that always hits me at the heartstrings. And then when Miguel says like he loved you, and it's just like, oh, that's so hit me. And then it flash forwards a year, and then they have their other quinceanera that come. Not quinceanera. I'm sorry. Quinceanera is it's a 15-year-old birthday. Um, they have their other Day of the Dead, which I don't know how to say it in Spanish. I'm sure you do. De la
Dia de
Muertos.
los Muertos, yeah.
Dia de la Muertos. Okay. And then they put their pictures on the ofrenda, And then they put Coco's picture on there, and like that hits me just a little bit because oh, she passed away. And then back in the day, in the land of the dead, and Hector gives Coco a big kiss, a big hug, and like oh that and like so it's just like one, and then and they're able to go back, and they see Miguel like playing his guitar, and they're all dancing around and stuff. And then Hector takes like a ghost guitar from them. They're all just having this nice, happy time, and Coco's with her daughter. The whole thing just freaking wrecks me every single time. It's just like a hit after hit. Like I remember sitting in the movie theater for some reason. I'm sure I took the day off because I do this. I used to do this all the time. Just take the day off and go see a movie. I was sitting in the movie theater by myself. It was the middle of the day, and I was just like crying, just tears coming down my face, just alone sitting in the movie theater to a point where I'm just like, am I crying this hard? Like, it's not that I don't. It's not that I'm ever startled that I'm crying in a movie because I cry in plenty of movies. It's just that how. So I started like laughing to the point of hysteria. Like I can't believe I'm crying like this, and it was a crazy, surreal moment. Anyway,
Then some
go watch
guy comes
Coco.
in to sweep the floors. Like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm
Right
okay.
now, you're like Will Smith pretending that he's not crying in The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. That's what you are right now.
Yeah.
But hey, if you don't feel something during Coco, you probably just don't like to be entertained at all. But
No.
uh, tremendous movie. Worth. I don't remember how we got here, but go watch Coco. It's amazing.
I don't. Oh, I think I was talking about the animation because I feel like the animation, even though Coco is a Pixar film, I feel like they took the animation up a notch some because there were just certain scenes that just jumped out, like that bridge of the Day of the Dead. Seeing Miguel play the guitar and how much emphasis they put on the actual movements of it. A lot of it was done so well. Anyway, go
And
watch Coco.
the depiction of the afterlife in Coco is so much more
Mm.
interesting than any other
Yeah,
depiction. Soul included. No offense, Soul fans. Not meant to
I'm
diss
not.
the movie,
Yeah,
but uh,
I thought Soul was fun. I never
it
need to
is.
watch
It
Soul
is.
again. I was disappointed because everyone hyped it up. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes, the culture, the black culture will hype up something because we don't get a lot of stuff all the time, right? So when we get something, we're gonna we're gonna hype it up. And so I watched it kind of after the fact. I was like, oh man, this one was kind of it wasn't a miss, but
No,
my
just it's
expectations
a fine movie.
weren't met. Like we hyped up Black Panther. And I love Black Panther. Like I'll hype it up with you, with everybody. But sometimes we get one that we shouldn't be not. It's not that we shouldn't hype it up. It's just that
It's
let's
a
just be
big
real about
deal
it.
that it's in a Disney Pixar, and it was a good, not great
Yeah,
movie. I'll watch it again. It's just not.
I mean, yeah, whatever.
I would, but no. This depiction of the afterlife is. So I keep thinking of the Slumdog Millionaire skit from a season. Sorry, Chris, you must be hyped about all this soul stuff, right? Every other movie but Slumdog Millionaire. That's us. We,
Where white people suck our dicks.
that's such a great skit. But you know what? The feeling I get from Soul is a similar feeling. This is my segue into how I felt about Raya the Last Dragon. Is that there was a lot of hype. I was very excited, and I
Mm.
just came out like, okay, good. That's how I felt about
Yeah.
the whole thing. So let's get into my ratings here. I was pretty big on the story. I thought it told a really nice story. Chris, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't want to demean your rating system that I have no credibility in. So I actually went to whole numbers. I found it slightly less like me trying to abuse your well thought out, well crafted ratings. So whole numbers for me. Story was a 9 out of 10. I thought that the story they were trying to tell, the lessons they were trying to tell, and you even said it, the lesson here being you trusting in an individual human, and that's going to brave her and waken stuff, but you can't let that affect your big picture view. I latched onto that right away. Loved it.
Mm.
That was great. And that I'm going to tie that into emotion too. It kind of hit me in a big moral place. Especially, we've kind of gone through a turbulent year, and this movie and some of its themes might be fitting for the year that we have gone through. Some of those themes of trust and humanity across the board. So it hit me right for those. Action was good, really good even. Where it was, the in between fight scenes. So sometimes we lump it into fight scenes when we're doing Avatar things, but there's
Yeah.
certainly more to it too, like escaping the Droon. Hope
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
pronouncing that
yeah.
right. Some of those
Yeah.
in between where it's not just dialogue or character interaction, but those other types of action scenes, I thought it did really well with those. Maybe just not quite enough of them. Comedy was just meh, very average. If 7 is like a C grade, mentioned a lot of it was forced, or that I didn't like. The baby and the monkeys were just like just a plot device that wasn't really all that amusing to me. But sort of also lumping into comedy, general charm, it was generally charming, and that like it would have been way worse. But if overall it just wasn't kind of so charming in a makes me smile way, I probably would have scored it lower. But it's not a funny movie by any means. Acting, I was not real pleased with it. I already kind of complained about Aquafina. I think the big fella, I forget his name, but the big fella, wasn't real crazy about him. So some of the
He was stereotypical.
yeah, some of the choices directorially and in the voice actors were not great, but there was nothing that was really bad that it was like off putting. So I felt like 7 was appropriate there, and I really liked the main antagonist, whose name now I forgot, and Raya herself. I thought they were both good. Raya's dad, I really liked him. So by and large, good. Betty White was like a weird inclusion because it's really hard to see Betty White as a small Asian woman because it's Betty White. And
I
then
knew it was Betty White. I didn't have to go look at the.
you
I
know
was like,
it
oh, that's Betty
immediately, and
White.
you just that feels out of place to me. I'm like, why is that? It could have been any cute old lady that's not whatever. It's fine. And then directing, I'm going to lump in some of these other sort of poor choices that are not poor choice. These things that I don't like in these other places, I'm going to lump into directing. And then I also felt like it was maybe a little too heavy-handed, a little too predictable, things like that. That I felt like that falls under the directing scope. Hopefully, I'm not misinterpreting your use of these categories too horribly, but
Nah,
felt like it the missed potential sort of is where I put stuff under directing. So overall, that left me at a 8.1. So like, it's still a good movie. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. If it's a B minus movie, I'm fine with that.
okay.
And that's the Avatar: The Last Podcaster's official, super hyper official, very credible review of Raya and the Last Dragon. Hopefully, we didn't spoil anything too badly for you. We'd love to hear your feedback if you watched the movie and or liked or disliked it. Chris, any final thoughts on Raya and the Last Dragon?
No, because we're gonna get into a lot more thoughts.
Yeah, if you want to see our full thoughts, you have to go watch the entire podcast episode. So go do that. All right, thanks for watching our review of Raya and the Last Dragon.
And oh, were you
Good.
gonna cut this out?
Cut,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
good,
cut
good,
right
okay,
there. But
yes.
normal podcast people hanging with us through the whole thing. Thanks for sticking with us through that bit. We'll see how that goes. If we hate it or love it, it's worth a shot. But let's get to the actual, again, the meat sort of the episode, the crux of this episode, which is a little comparison between Raya and Korra.
And Avatar, yeah, just Avatar in general.
I know I
Um,
keep saying Ryan Korra. My bad.
look at
We're not comparing two female characters. That's on me.
yeah. So in this, we're gonna compare a couple different topics. We're gonna compare the backstories, the Asian or diverse influences within both of them, the character designs, the morals of the story, some of the fighting or elemental magic comparisons. Dragons, because I just want to talk about dragons because I know Sean has strong opinions on dragons, and then just some of how to compare some of the relationships, i.e., wait, no, I'm sorry, compare some of the relationships, e.g., Korosami.
Well done.
Yeah. Define relationship, Korosami. That's what.
Okay. That's not a
if
bad.
if I was trying to use
You,
i.e. in the
in the proper
but it had
sense.
to,
No,
yeah.
that actually I'm okay with if you want to define relationships that way. I'm fine with that.
All right, so backstory. I think this is So let me just say in general that when trailers first came out for Raya and the Last Dragon, so many people, including myself, was like, well, I wasn't that harsh on it. A lot of people were like, oh, this just seems like an Avatar Last Airbender ripoff. And most time when I go to movies, I'm just like, just let the movie breathe or let it tell its own story. And I don't think it is an Avatar Last Airbender ripoff. I think there sure are some influences there, but I don't see it. I think it's its own thing. But I do think there's a lot of little things to compare and contrast. They have a lot of kind of overlap, if you will. Now, one of the biggest overlaps that that is probably the biggest influence is the back story, right? Because you have nations.
The way that you
Um,
introduced it in the review was pretty revealing, in that I mean, it's not like a 1-to-1, but for such a quick take, it was very accurate.
uh,
Strong parallels, maybe that's what we'll
yeah.
say.
So you have something that happened. You have groups of different people, right? The four nations, the five lands. They used to live together. Then something happened. They broke up, and these mystical figures who was
You just
once the
described large
protector.
political, geopolitical entities as like a relationship. Like bad stuff happened, they broke up, and
Yeah,
off again, on again kind of way.
yeah. Um, these mystical figures are supposed to save the day, but they vanished, and only one is left. And so how Angus, the last Airbender, got the last dragon. Those are very similar things. Now, I think in terms of how the nations are done, one thing I'm gonna be biased because I love Avatar, but I'll try to be real here. Avatar handles the four nations in such a different, more dynamic way. And granted, Avatar has 60 episodes to do this, and then you add on core on top of that, right? But the
Comic
nations,
books, everything, it
yeah,
all helps.
yeah. But I think even early on, like you get a sense of the difference between the four nations, right? Aang is like, I'm a simple monk. Like you get the sense the Airbenders were simple people, right? They're defined. Waterbenders, they're defined. Firebenders, they're kind of defined, and then Earthbenders are defined. You just get the sense that these different nations have a character of themselves, and that was, I think, kind of missing from Raya and the Last Dragon, or maybe it was done purposely, to show that like, hey, maybe we're not all that different at all. But I think I kind of would have. There was a little bit of that, right? Because you had the Fangs who were more technologically. No, they weren't technology. They just had better infrastructures and like better
There
buildings and stuff. They're richer. They appear to be richer.
there wasn't as strong of distinctions between them. So like on one hand, it felt to me like we kind of talked before the show. I hope I'm articulating this okay. It felt like a nice representation of, say, the continent of Asia being a massive continent that spans a
Mm,
number of different I'm forgetting like geographies and climates, like geographies and climates. And it did that, but at the same time, it was more like just like a continental Asia versus where Avatar, it really does feel like you've spanned something closer to the globe almost. So it just
true. Very true. Very true.
didn't have as sort of big, interesting distinction. So maybe that
That
makes it slightly more grounded to Asia. I don't know where I'm trying to go with that, but it's a
No,
difference
I
between
think
them
that's a
two.
good. I think that's a good point. I mean, when you have people that all live within the same country or continent, I don't know how big the landmass is of this land here. They're going to be relatively the same, right? They're kind of the same race, but you felt like the Fire Nation and the Air Nomads were completely different races
It
than
did. It
each
felt a
other. And
very
also
yeah.
the air. I mean, you could see character-wise that the Water Tribes were a different race of people, and that kind of helped to differentiate between the different nations.
I do think that that amount of material facilitates that and makes that possible. But Avatar does a really good job of like distinguishing out of the gate. Like episode 1, we've got opposite ends of the spectrum in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Um, I think length of material helps, but again, Avatar comes out of the gate swinging with those distinctions,
Yeah.
with that diversity.
All right. So, do you have anything to say about kind of the backstory or anything
A
on
lot of
that?
lot of overlap and parallels.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it. Um, I mean, I guess some difference between the world is that it's just not, one person, right? With the Avatar, um, and but that makes Avatar a little bit better, maybe a little bit more legendary, I guess.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that. I like that. I mean, there's. It's not just one person, but there again, maybe that gives it a more grounded feel as opposed to a
yeah,
sort of legendary status avatar thing. Maybe that's
yeah.
intentional or not.
All right. So next up, we'll talk about the kind of Asian influence, or just the whole kind of diversity influence. Now, Ryan the Last Dragon pulled kind of pull more from just East Asian influence. And I feel like that's one of the biggest differences here between that and the Avatar world. Is that oftentimes a lot of people do think of the Avatar world as like, oh, all these Asian characters, and that's completely in these Asian cultures, and that's completely wrong, right? Because Avatar spans really the whole entire globe except for Europe. Like they touch everywhere except for Europe,
And that's
and
fine.
yeah, that's great.
Every other TV show but Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's us.
Yeah. And Cosby Show, that's us. But back when people used to brag about their love of the Cosby Show. No. Oh man, dang. Okay. Um, Clippers are up 7 now. If you know.
Clips came back.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Um,
Wow, PG
the
must be mad.
yeah. Anyway, so that's one of the biggest differences here. Although even if I feel like even if I just zoned in on Avatar's just the influence of this East Asian influence, they did I think such a better job. Which sounds weird because it's two white guys, and I don't know the director behind Raya and the Last Dragon or the writers behind it. I should look that
And
up.
I never do. I'm not
Uh,
even gonna pretend like I
no, it's
do.
okay. But Avatar, I feel like it's in the bones, right? It's in the bending. It's in their wardrobe. It's in the buildings
I'm gonna go back to
surrounding it.
episode one. You see a like distinctly darker skinned color people in a frozen tundra, like living in igloos with minimal weaponry. There's no men around whatsoever, and you get attacked by these sci-fi looking steampunk warships with a again like distinctly lighter skin tone of person. Like I just this is episode one. It's immediate where you feel these sort of opposite ends of the spectrum even meeting right out of the gate, and that's something that probably I wouldn't have noticed 2 or 3 years ago. But the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I am impressed of how quickly they relay that message or relay that part of the
Yeah.
story.
And I'm sure that I am missing um that I'm missing things from or not putting enough emphasis on things that Ryan the Last Dragon did that really just emphasize that Asian influence there. So if I did miss anything, go ahead and tell me, let me know.
Um, yeah. Other even the type. Well, we'll get to this later, and I'm gonna embarrass myself. But like even the type of dragon that Sisu
Mm,
is and stuff like was
yeah.
derived from a specific type of dragon and Chinese lore. And maybe that's one of those where it's like, oh,
Okay, that's
I
good.
just happened to read that. Maybe Avatar's dragons were very possibly derived from something, from a specific type. So things that we don't know on both sides. But
Yeah. All right. So next up, character designs, not including the dragons. This is where there's a certain scene, right? When this is where I feel like Raya and the Last Dragon does the most cheating off of Legend of Korra. When Raya is a kid, she has her hair and
two loopies right here and a ponytail. Sounds very familiar. She's wearing a blue shirt, a sleeveless blue shirt, but she has darker blue sleeves. Like that is just a complete rip off of Korra. Like there's no way around it. That's just like who it's that had to be intentional because there's no way that someone in who was doing the designs wasn't like that looks like Korra, and then someone been like, no, it doesn't. Like they would have had to known that it looked exactly like Korra.
Somebody, at least one person involved in the creation of this movie prior to its release, had to look and think to themselves, that's very familiar.
Yeah.
I can't put my
I'm
finger
like,
on it.
I'm surprised it even passed legal. Like you know how like at Payless, right? They come out with a shoe. They have to take the shoe to legal, and the shoe has to get signed off on.
Based on a number of stripes on a tennis shoe. It's incredible. So yeah, in this we're talking about like I don't. It's calling it rivals makes it sound like Nickelodeon's on the same level, and it's not. But like companies that aren't like buddies by any means would have every
Yeah,
reason.
they're competition. Yeah,
Yeah, would have every reason to be like, hey,
you're infringing on our
did you
character.
steal
Yeah,
that from us? In the
yeah.
music, and Chris, you know more about the music industry than I do, but it feels like in the music industry, people get sued over
To
way
me,
less
it's
egregious stuff.
it's laughable in the music industry, especially because music is there's only so many notes,
There's literally a
and
limited number of notes that a human can hear, and every song that comes on like pop radio today it
yeah,
sounds the same. But no, the music industry it'll be like a riff, right?
yeah,
It'll be a guitar riff that's pervasive across the song, and they'll be like, "You stole that from us." But like, it's four notes. What do you want?
yeah, yeah.
It's a tangent, but no, they get away with like suing for way less than what we're talking about here.
Yeah, this is to me this is a blatant ripoff. But luckily, I think this is where the character designs kind of the similarities between character designs stop, and after that they're both very much in a lot of ways Asian influence, but they just look a lot different, which is really cool, right? You can have uh, two two properties both designed characters off of Asian influence, but they still look like completely different kind of characters. So I found that to be enjoyable for both of them. I think both of them have great character designs for kind of all the characters.
We touched on it in our sort of official review that we're the design of characters in general may be growing a little tired, but that does not mean it's not good and extremely detailed and very attractive to look at in Raya. And then obviously I'm always going to be a 2D over 3D guy. Video games and any kind of animated CG, not what am I looking for? Anything that's not live action, I'm always going to be 2D over 3D. So obviously I have a very biased, stilted preference for the Avatar universe, but beautifully designed characters and everything in Raya the Last Dragon.
Yep. And then on to the moral of the story, and this is the hardest thing to I think compare because Avatar Last Airbender doesn't just have one moral of the story. Like, there's so many morals to take away. And Raya and the Last Dragon, it's pretty clear what the moral is. It's like keep trusting in humanity, which I feel like there's certain morals in the Avatar, certain lessons that are kind of like that, right? So Angus often talking about how like I think people deserve to have a given a second chance. Like even when Zuko, even that scene in the Blue Spirit where Angus like, you think we could be friends? Like Angus continually trying to give people the second chance that he thinks they uh, deserve.
I don't know if I use the phrase right. I say heavy-handed sometimes. I don't know if I'm using it quite right, but that's what I mean here with Raya. When I say heavy-handed, it means like what I'm trying to get across is that it feels like they're really punching that theme in there really hard. Like you could have it in there maybe more organically, or maybe have multiple morals like real life is, where you're never just dwelling on one thing like that, I guess, that feels more like Avatar. Avatar, the original Avatar: The Last Airbender, yes, the way that it wraps up, as you've mentioned, does kind of come to a point, but it's organic, and they didn't just beat it in our heads for 60 episodes. It's sort of underlying pervasive. But so when I call it heavy-handed, I, again, not knowing for sure if that's the right phrase or not, but that's what I'm getting at in Raya, is that it feels like it's really pushing that one thing.
It is
very hard.
Yeah, there was you could watch the first 30 minutes of this film and get a sense without knowing how it ends and be like, oh, well, the moral of the story is keep trusting people.
Yeah.
Because they bring up trust a lot.
You might miss out on some of the roller coaster nuance, ups and downs of trusting humans, but you're gonna come away with that right idea.
Yeah. Okay, so next up is fighting and sort of fighting / mixing of the elemental magic. I'll first start with the elemental magic. They introduced elemental magic in Raya and the Last Dragon, and I thought it was done piss poorly, to be honest. like she gets Sisu gets the gems of it. She's like, oh, well, this power, I randomly got this power of water. Of making it rain, and she only does it to climb up a little bit, to travel. Like, oh, I got smoke, which is, I don't know, air or something, and then just shape shifting. There's no earth, I guess. I don't know what her other magic powers. There was shape shifting, smoke, water. I don't know what our other ones were. Glowing, I guess. Wish they stole that from the Last Dragon. Come on now, you can't be like, oh, I got the glow. Like the Last Dragon.
Well, they were combining Last Airbender and Raya and the Last Dragon, and took some liberties. We're so used to, obviously we spend like an hour a week talking about this system of magic. I'm going to call it, we know it's bending, but I'm going to call it magic in this case. That's sort of very grounded in a pretty strong set of rules, which is part of what sets it apart from other stories, other animated things of the same ilk, or even other just fiction in general that uses magic. Yeah. And whereas this Raya felt very much closer to like the standard sort of arbitrary, ill-defined, lot more gray areas. So we're a little spoiled. This is very standard, very normal, but I agree that it doesn't feel nearly as good as what we talk about literally every week.
Yeah. And so as for the fighting, it's so kind of amazing, honestly, when you think about the fighting in Avatar. And I'm not talking about the fighting with bending in it, like just comparing the non-bending fights,
the martial artistry in general.
Yes, to the fighting, and there seems to be a lot more martial arts in Legend of Korra and Avatar than there was here. None of these people have bending. It would have been a lot cooler, I think, for them to introduce those things, which makes me just appreciate the animation and the choreography that they went through in this show, in this kids show. And the budget that they had couldn't have been all that great, especially compared to this movie. Granted, this movie wasn't about fighting and stuff, but I think a cool scene similar to maybe similar to burning the boiling rock, right? Those are all non-benders, or similar to how Zuko fall as a blue spirit, escaping and stuff. Just those really dynamic fight scenes, I think, would have helped out the film.
I think that I'm not going to hold this one quite as much against... I'm not going to hold it against Raya quite as much, because the fighting in Avatar: The Last Airbender serves a different purpose, or built in a different way. Like martial artistry is such a big part of the universe, because it's so tangibly tied to bending, whereas in Raya it just is a thing. It's just standalone martial artistry and fighting, and it doesn't have the same role in the story to me. So it's not nearly as good, but for some reason I'm inclined, and I can't necessarily explain it, but I'm inclined to like not hold that against Raya and the Last Dragon. It didn't lean on it as much, so it didn't do as good of a job, but it didn't. It's not like the whole movie was kind of built around it or anything like that. Whereas, again, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's tied to bending. It's tied to the core of what the show is. Um, they what they did on, again, presumably at the beginning, having, I would have to guess a very small budget to make it animate as beautifully as it did is the pinnacle, not the expectation for other things.
Yeah. Now there is one thing that I really like about the fighting, and that was Raya's sword. To me, that is the coolest weapon, I think, between any of the properties. Like I would have liked to see someone like, who would you like to have seen have that sword in Avatar?
I mean, Sokka, obviously, but
You think
or
he could handle that? I don't think he has the. He would,
eventually, yeah. If you
yeah,
want
but
like a craft and cunning way, Zuko, of course.
yeah.
If you want to make me mad just for funsies, I suppose you could say Jet. I think Zuko's the obvious answer. That, I mean, I like Sokka and his approach to swordplay specifically. So
I could see Sokka if this was like a traditional water tribe weapon, right? Because it sort of has this whip factor to it that's like water, right? Oh, actually, you know what? I am gonna go ahead and give it to Sokka. Not think about
it's
because
very
like
it would be like him graduating from a boomerang or his club to the next thing. Like, this is the water tribe weapon. The way
yeah,
you
like
handle it is like, it's like a bender, but you're not, right? This is what we do for not benders who
exactly, yeah.
I
Like the whip
didn't even,
part,
I can't take credit for any. I didn't think of that till just now, but it is really cool that parallels.
but the whip part would be like controlling water in its natural stance, right? It's very fluid and stuff, emotiony, but then you structure it into a sword, and it's like when you have ice. It's now this solid thing, right? So yeah, so
It also makes more sense to me as a weapon than some of, and well, I'm just gonna come out and say it, is that Jet's weapons piss me off, and I know you tried to make the case, and you were probably
just
right.
weapons are cool.
They are not. They're dumb.
Just a cool
So
character.
something like this. No,
Jet for president.
why do you hate me? The no, this makes much more sense as like a highly skilled but unique and
Yeah.
different. Like, you sit at home someday, you, not you, Chris, but you, the what's the word? The proverbial all of you, sit at home someday, see if you can craft up a different weapon that's unique and special and makes any sense whatsoever. Because you can't do it, but this one did. It's very unique and exciting to watch.
I would have loved to see this in Avatar. Oh, who in Legend of Korra do you think would have this weapon?
Are there less weapons in Legend of Korra?
I feel like yes.
Just gloves.
I feel like there's more benders in Legend of Korra.
Gloves and zappy sticks. Because I'm having a hard time thinking, like, who am I gonna? I guess Asami. Just
I think
Asami could learn to handle a weapon really well.
honestly you would just give it to a bender and it would be an extension of them. Like maybe I could see Rock with it.
Okay. I wasn't even.
Korra's
I was
father.
thinking like straight up Team Avatar, but I like where you took that
Yeah.
for sure. I'm gonna stick with Asami. Just, she's clearly like a very skilled non-bender who I would trust with a complex weapon.
Yeah. If Korra carried a weapon, which I mean, I think Avatar should carry weapons also. Um, she could actually, I don't know if I see Korra with this type of weapon.
I think
Korra, what
Korra
type
is
of
going to
weapon
be more of a blunt force. Like, hers is going to be a club or a boomerang again. Maybe not necessarily for Water Tribe reasons as much as I feel like that's more her personality.
I think I wouldn't give her a blunt weapon. I would give her some with some type of dynamic range. I think she would be like a dual boomerang user.
Dual boomerangs, nice. Yeah, okay, I get aboard. Well, let's be honest. They're in like a steampunky age. They'd probably just have guns. They just they'd just be packing regular heat. Way less interesting. Maybe that's why they didn't give them weapons. Like, guys, any weapon in this day and age, like, it's just a firearm. Yeah, we can't do that. We better just stick to bending and zappy gloves.
Yeah.
No, I didn't even think about that one.
You know what? Lynn would also have the weapon as a metal bender.
This one, and she would. What is this thing called that we're even tied? I don't even know if it has a
I
name.
don't, I don't, I don't. I mean, I don't think it's a real thing to have.
This is basically a metal
Maybe it is a
bending
real.
sword whip thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
Lynn, or what, I'm gonna just say, most metal benders would probably kill with this thing. Literally,
yeah,
no pun intended. Literal intended.
yeah. Or I guess maybe it'll be. Oh, you know what? I'll switch it to Kuvira because Lynn already has like the cables,
Yeah,
and Kuvira should have a like an intimidating weapon that's
you don't think that
like
part of
like
Kavira's thing is that her weapons seem unassuming at first? Her clips.
her clip. That's
That's so
cool,
good for her
but
character, and it's like
giving
resourceful. Like, look at what I can do with this. It's a hair clip at best, and then I'm gonna incapacitate your whole gang with it. So
but giving her a weapon like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, that
yeah,
like she could have it on the other side of the room, right? And someone's coming to intimidate her or to attack her, and they're not sure if they're quick enough to catch her off guard until she can get that weapon to her and summon it to her. Like
I could agree
she
that
could just
she
be
would
that
be.
intimidating.
I could be agree that she could be the best with it, but just like me trying to pair it to the right character, I don't know if I want her to have it. I think I want it to
Okay.
be. I think I want it to be uh, Lynn or Lynn's sister, whose name I shamefully can't think of right now.
Suyin.
Suyin, thank you.
Yeah.
I want it to be a
Good.
good guy.
All right.
It doesn't actually suit Suyin either.
No,
She
I don't
doesn't
think
seem
it
like
is.
she needs a flashy weapon. Let's go Lynn.
It doesn't seem like the weapon as type.
No, and so I'm gonna say if we Lynn, if we get a bender, but if we're giving it to a non-bender in the vein of like giving Sokka a special weapon, then Asami becomes maybe too obvious. So maybe that's a dumb tangent.
Yeah.
Good point. Wish we'd talked about that weapon in the review part.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm okay. Never mind. Yeah, I can hear myself. I can see myself. Anyway. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Okay. So next
No,
up
you're talking to me. I
is
can't hear you. You just validated it.
is the dragons. So there's a few dragons in Avatar. Sean, I would like you to talk about how you feel about like the dragons in Raya and the Last Dragon.
Let me start by saying that the dragons in Avatar are some of my favorite dragons in
Oh, okay.
any medium ever. They are exactly what I want, which is like big but like lithe and powerful. I don't want a big fat the How to Train Your Dragons, the alpha dragons, those never did it for me. For me, the dragon's like sinewy, it's lithe, it's still massive and insanely powerful just based on size and scope. Legend of Zelda dragons tend to do that very well. That kind of wyvern, snake-like, but still very big and powerful. So Avatar dragons are among my favorite. So that being said, in Raya and the Last Dragon, it veers more towards again that Disney Pixar persona of it, or not persona, visage of what a dragon
Mm,
is. And so
yeah.
I'm not quite as big of a fan, but at the same time, I do like how they incorporate like a diversity of dragons. Too often in my head, I have this what I want a dragon to be in a series, and they all look like this. In Raya and the Last Dragon, it feels like even in the little dragon familia, that there was kind of diversity among the dragons, and I did really like that. I liked them having some affiliation. I always want my dragons to have some affiliation with the magical power, even if we don't like how it was like plotted out or how it was set up. But to me, magic like dragons are always magical creatures of some way, shape, or form. I like they had very like unique personality in Sisu, for example. As much as I didn't love the voice acting, I liked the type of personality that they gave her, and that it was intentionally distinct from all of her siblings dragons, and they tried to make
No,
that clear
okay.
up front. So maybe that's the way to put it. Is I like the
These are
personification of the dragons
yes.
in Raya and the Last
These
Dragon, even if I don't like the dragons as much.
these are I think very sentient character dragons, unlike the dragons in the Avatar universe, which are more so they're not pets, but they're 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 not conversationalists.
I'm gonna make like a
Yeah,
weird. It's almost like a I don't know, a paradox or a reciprocal of like in Raya and the Last Dragon, they're supposed to be these supernatural, not worshipped things, but these sort of
Yeah,
supernatural things, these metaphysical things. But then in
yeah.
the end, they're just kind of a small creature with serious limitations and stuff like and very human-like traits. Whereas then
They
you go to Avatar, and they treat them like pets or closer to animals, when in reality they are these massive supernatural, like impossible to understand, hunted as a means of attaining some sort of mythical legendary
mm,
status. So it's like a reciprocal of how they're treated versus what they actually are and feel like.
yeah. I character design wise, in the context of the film, I like the character designs of the dragons. Just as a person doesn't just think about dragons, I don't really like the the designs of them. They're not. I don't like dragons that are designed like. I like my dragons with probably two horns or a lot multiple horns, not just like a unicorn type of deal. I like my dragons with wings, and I do always like hairy hair like on dragons. So I think that's really
Oh, no
cool
kid,
because it's such
like a
a
main kind of.
yeah, because it's such a contradiction from the scales that are on dragons, right? Because amphibians and not
What would that hair
amphibians,
even feel like?
reptiles don't have hair,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of cool because you usually associate dragons with some type of reptile, and so I think that's really cool when dragons have some type of kind of hair on them. Um, but I do just as you mentioned before, I do like the mysticism, the sort of godlike dragons that they are in it.
Uh, just curious, do you have a favorite live action dragon?
Mm,
I
I
don't.
like Daenerys' dragon.
Daenerys' dragon is pretty sick.
Drogo. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and
No.
their development from from baby dragon to full
Mm.
grown, like I kind of
Yeah,
like them at every step.
and also like you get to see, you fully get to see just what a dragon is capable of and how it changes the complete dichotomy of the complete power structure of the whole world when a dragon is a thing that's alive.
It's just a massive military weapon of almost unfathomable scope. Uh,
Yeah.
I think when I think of live action dragons, or I try to picture a dragon in the real world, not in an animated way, I usually go
Okay.
to the Hungarian horntail from Harry Potter first. It's not because I think it's perfect, but again, it sticks to that like this is it's a like a massive athlete of a creature. It's not a big lumbering thing, but it is big and strong and is very impressive uh, in speed and power and things like that. Very horrifying to look at. So those tend to be my favorite kind of dragons. Um, I like the movies How to Train a Dragon, but I don't like that Pixar ness to all of those dragons. And there's a little bit of
Yeah.
that. There's a little bit of that to these
Oh,
here, but
yeah. Oh, wait, you said live action. Thunder's a good dragon. The Dragon Prince has some great
Dragon Prince has some killer dragons.
dragons.
Those would be more like a bigger. I don't want lumbering's not the right word, but like maybe an old school idea of a swords and sorcery dragon, like just these
Mm.
massive, thicker beings that maybe aren't.
Yeah.
I don't,
Those dragons are kind of a great cross between I think the Avatar dragons and Raya and the Last Dragon dragons, right? Because they are more like mystical creatures. Like they are the heads of these and of a whole land, right? They have a whole power structure to them, and they're very thought provoking. They have their own
and
opinions
they have their
and
own
kind of
gray
debates.
areas. Like we see these
Yeah,
dragons, these very intelligent dragons, having like causing moral dilemmas. So they're not pets; they're real supernatural beings, but with real like
yeah,
yeah. They I may not they're incredibly designed. It may not be my favorite kind of dragon, but yeah, maybe on an intellectual level and what they represent as dragons, those are dragon prince dragons are crazy good.
yeah, yeah. And they're very diverse, also. Like, yeah, very diverse. Anyway, Those are the dragons. I
Someday we'll
like
just
both
do
dragons.
a whole episode about dragons.
So relationships, and really this just gets down to two relationships that I think are fairly similar because they're so Disney has this thing where so people call it queer baiting, right? Where you have two characters who seem to be like clearly there's something that could go on there, but Disney's like, no, we're never gonna go that far. Um, we're never gonna make a character in any of our properties gay or anything close to that. But like this,
They're gonna put it there and let you take it that way if you want it,
yeah, they're
but
gonna let you. Yeah, they're
they're
gonna
never
let
just
you.
gonna.
Yeah, which is which I think this would have been a great opportunity to introduce a gay character in a family film. And I think it would have been very natural. Right? 'Cause I think these two characters have a lot of chemistry together. They sort of have this rivalry, but they there's some trust that was broken in the past there. So I'm talking about the relationship between Raya and I forgot her name. But you know the main antagonist sort of the film,
Namari, yes.
Namari.
I keep forgetting her name, but
Yeah, like, and granted, you don't have to jump to it because the thing is, I'm sure the writers would be like, "Whoa, you're just jumping to that." It would be a jump in the story to get them there, right? They went from friends to kind of more enemies, and you'd just be jumping straight to them being
to
like
them
a couple if you did
frenemies, and
that.
now you're trying to make them. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
which I could buy that, but I'm pretty sure if this was a heterosexual relationship, they would have made the jump.
we.
Like, they would
We
have written in a way to make the jump.
as I say, it's like we could maybe buy it on an individual level, but like Disney, just give us one at some point, and
Yeah.
then we maybe
Like if they
won't.
ever get a, yeah, they won't ever do it. I just thought it was pretty similar to the way Korra Sami was done, right? They were frenemies, if you will, and they ended up being together. They could, and the thing is that Legend of Korra actually didn't rush to it either, right? They end the series with them holding hands and starting the relationship. They could have easily kind of done that at the end of this, and like there were so many
Without
like
yeah, as I
longing.
say, without the additional material, you could make
Sorry.
the case that it's the same thing without those
Yeah.
additional uh, avatar materials at our disposal.
Yeah. Although they were to me they were very very clear on Korosami, right? You don't and they dropped so many hints and cues in it, right? Because they at the end of the episode you had Varric and Julie getting married,
Hmm?
and then Korosami, that connection to them uh walking those are complete parallels to each other. So you in your head supposed to think, all right, this is a couple. Also, they were playing the Avatar's theme, but in like a love you way, the same way they played at the end of of the series. And so they went as far as they could, right? Like holding hands, going into Spirit Portal. And then if you look back, I think, and we'll get into this whenever we wrap up our review of it. There's so many little hints dropped in that when I first watched it, I did not notice it like at all. The thing is, I remember like being on like internet pages and people are like, "Oh yeah, we totally ship Korosami," and in my head, I'm like, guys, like there can be because in my head, the people who were shipping Korosami were like people who just wanted to see two girls. Like, it was like in my head, it was dumb guys who wanted to see two girls hook up. So in my so me thinking I'm being like defensive of I'm they're just like friends. Not that they're friends, but that I like. All right, I don't see it. And then I rewatched. I'm like, oh, there was a lot of hints actually. And it wasn't random jock guys want to see girls make out with each other. It was legitimate people who really thought and saw this. And Brian and Mike, like right when the episode aired, they released statements on it. Like Brian wrote, "Korosami is canon. You said you can love it, you can hate it, but it's canon." Like he was very adamant on that.
I didn't know
But
that.
and
That's
you would
awesome.
think,
I didn't know
yeah,
they
yeah,
did
they came
that.
out right afterwards. Which with some really, Mike and Brian usually have very thought out statements on things,
A
which
very,
I highly
very
respect them.
deliberately worded things. Yeah.
Yeah. Which you would think that, Legend of Korra ended in 2014, I think. Was it 2014? Somewhere around there. It's been 7 years since then, and
2014. That sounds right.
yeah, and I thought this would have been a good time to do that. The TV has made huge strides, I think, in representation for gay characters, but films, specifically Disney. Actually, I don't think Disney has made any strides, even in their TV shows. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, this is one of those
yeah,
where we're like
TV,
happy to be like, if you have an example, by all means.
yeah. But Disney is known just for queer baiting people, queer baiting their fans, which gets fans mad, which I completely understand as a person who's been. The thing is, you can't black bait people. A person's the person's black or not.
I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know. You made that
you
entire episode
actually
about characters who are black, but not. It's
that
like
is true. My bad. That is true. You can't.
it might not
Yeah.
be intentional,
You.
but it could happen, I suppose.
No, you're right. Oh yeah.
Go
I
watch
just
if you
remember
haven't
in
watched that video of Chris's. By the way, if you allow me to plug it, that's got to be one of your better videos, in my opinion. Not necessarily in performance, but like amusing and thought provoking and different. Like you go try to find a different video on YouTube that tells a similar story as what that one does. It's
I
great.
don't think. Uh, yeah, I guess I. I know you say that, but you probably could. People do probably
I
blackbait a
mean,
lot of times. Like,
YouTube's a big place, so I wouldn't
yeah.
I wouldn't.
Like I think of the Transformer vibe in the first Transformer movie, who's clearly stereotypically black to almost an offensive
Okay, but
point.
don't talk about Michael Bay stuff on this podcast. Take that somewhere else.
But then that's the Transformer that how I knew he was black because he was the one that was killed. that's, that's how I knew.
You're like, wait a
Like,
minute, is this a horror movie? Is it
yeah,
the black Transformer go first?
the only one, nobody else.
But that's
Like he would come into scenes. Hey there, little bitches. Like, why are you? Why is this the stereotypical
what
black guy voice you came up with? Like, oh my gosh.
it's some executive level folk trying to that aren't in touch, trying to what am I trying to say? Trying to appeal to somebody that they don't understand,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But no, hey, no more
Uh,
Michael Bay though. That's outlawed. I won't allow it. I'll mute you.
but anyway, those are all the things we compared and contrast with them.
Yeah, yeah, cut it all. And again, it's there's a few things that sort of make this obvious and fun to do. Themes, dragons, Korra ripoffs, and stuff like that. Other things, like I said, for me, say fighting, the fighting and stuff like that, where there's not like an obvious parallel to me, at least, other than but the attempt at magic, I guess, was really a parallel.
Yeah.
Just maybe a
All
poor
in
one, but
all, I would say it wasn't. Even though the backstory is very similar, I finished the film, thinking that it wasn't that very close to Avatar: Last Airbender, nor
I
in quality, nor in I think in how the story played out.
I don't have any. My brain's not dynamic at all. So when I'm watching stuff, I'm never thinking about that stuff until you point it out. Like until you literally point it out to me. You're like, hey, let's compare these two, and then I get all John Mulaney. I'm like, yeah, they are the same. No, when I just watched the film, came away, as I mentioned in the review, feeling good, but not great. But in a way, I do appreciate it more when we have like even this type of discussion, even where kind of bagging on it a little bit for not doing things as good as the Avatar universe that we talk about. But it makes me appreciate the nuance of the film more when we get to talk about it like this. So
Yeah.
good, better for me even with a little dragon bashing.
Yeah, I would recommend the film. Yeah.
Yeah, I was happy with this. 8.1 felt right to me as like this it's a B movie. Not that's funny, a B movie. Not in the literal sense of a B movie. It's very much a AAA movie, but like a B grade, a B caliber movie. I'm comfortable with that. That's what I would tell somebody. Final thoughts on comparisons on Raya and the Last Dragon, on your favorite dragons of any type. You know what? That deserves its own episode. Don't do that.
I feel like we talked about this.
On bringing Michael Bay up in the podcast. Is this the first time that's ever happened in 3 years? Is the first time we ever made a Michael Bay conversation?
Is it? Probably. Yeah. Although, you know what? I actually love the first Transformers movie. It was in my top 10 movies for a long time.
At least it is the best Michael Bay movie. I will give you that.
I don't know, Bad Boys 1 and 2. I think he did both of those. Those actually aren't
Oh,
bad.
I didn't even know that he did those, to be fair.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Well, also, I haven't seen those in a long time, so I'm going to reserve judgment on all fronts for those. I haven't seen them in a while.
Actually, I don't think Bad Boys 2 ages as well. Bad Boys 1.
That sounds like a sequel thing. Yeah, I could believe that.
Yeah.
But I'm only mad because the other day somebody sent me a very inexpensive 3DS game, and it was Turtles, and they were recommending it. And it was like, Sean, you're gonna love it. It's a beat 'em up, and it's pretty simple. It's got fighting mechanics, and I put it in, and it was like Michael Bay Turtles. I thought it was gonna be like animated Nickelodeon, and I was so mad. And then I played it, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of good. Shut up, game. Anyway, that is our extensive thoughts on Raya and the Last Dragon. Thanks for bearing with us as we tried to put a real review in there. We will ideally, like I said, we'll pluck that out and we'll make it separate. So if people just want to see our bare bones review of the movie, great. My name's Sean Shaler. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka the Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter fame. This has been Avatar: The Last Podcasters. You can find us on all the social mediums and all the normal places. I'm very tired, so I'm not going to say them right now. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.